Hi, Sean Huckster here. Welcome down the Mighty Max rabbit hole. Today I'm going to review a Mighty Max horror head called Mighty Max Crushes Clawber. Now, I've already reviewed 12 horror heads, and these were, of the 16, these were the 12 that you can reasonably find at a good price. And then there are 4 that are crazy expensive. This is one of the crazy expensive ones, but a deal came up a little while ago, and I just couldn't pass it up. From Australia, I paid a little bit more than I would pay for the others, but certainly less than I've seen it go for. So I'm quite happy with that purchase. And I have to say, I really am happy with this one, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But first, let's start with the cartoon, as I usually do. The cartoon is a bit strange. So Clawber is a being. He's riding some sort of hovercraft, and he's shooting at a young boy. And then a turkey vulture, or a vulture almost looks like a condor, grabs Max, as Max is hiding behind a rock watching this, grabs Max, and Clawber says, "Oh, 2 human boys in one day, excellent." And so Max grabs the first thing that's handy, which happens to be this sort of slug, and throws it at the condor or the vulture, and kind of ruins his day. And then somehow manages, the vulture maybe flies into Clawber and his machine, and they go tumbling over a cliff, and that's the end of that. I don't see that story in this set. First of all, we don't have a Clawber villain in here, and that's fine, but this is supposed to represent the Clawber villain. Let's talk about why I don't see that. So what do I see? First of all, I see a vulture claw, the 3-toed claws of a vulture or a condor, grabbing a skull, which he probably found on the ground, and lifting it up and taking it maybe to his nest to feed young. And the skull looks, it's not fully skull yet. It looks like desiccated flesh, so it's like a dead person, but not a full skull yet. Again, they sold this to kids, right? And then, as you see with almost every Mighty Max set, part of the interior is visible and becomes part of the exterior. And here you have these 2 eyes, which are interior, and you have this jawbone here. You see a very defined seam here, and there's a reason for that. And this jawbone actually works. It actually hinges down. And as you do so, the eyes move, so you know that this is part of one piece. Well, let's open it up and see what we got. When you open up the piece, it's quite nice. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is this. You see that the eyes are here. Now, this is not actually hinged in place. It's just sort of popped in place. But it's got these little hooks that make sure it can't come out when the set is closed. But you can just unhook those, slide it out. And then you have this jawbone, this mandible of a skull. And oh, look, there's a foothold there for Mighty Max. So this is clearly a vehicle. And if you flip it upside down, you see tank treads or caterpillar treads, right? And so you got the wheels there and the treads. Definitely a crawling vehicle, and it's meant to crawl along like this. Now in the cartoon, they have him flying it like this as a hovercraft. And I'm thinking, that's kind of dumb, given that this is tank treads. This is not likely a hovercraft or even any kind of flying vehicle, but you know, you never know. A flying vehicle might have treads. But the foothold is definitely meant to be vertical like so, and these power pillars are not supposed to be aimed forward. And yet in the comic, he uses these to shoot at a young boy. Enough about this for the moment. Let's put him here and look at the set itself. Well, we have a Mighty Max, obviously. Series 2 Mighty Max, or 2 and 3, I guess. And Mighty Max has a foothold here, so you can pull Mighty Max out. I chose this particular one for a reason today, which we'll get to. And then we have this beautiful vulture, and I'm thinking with the white, it almost looks like a California condor, or some sort of large condor. It is designed to sit upon this perch. Its claws have hooks, so it can grab onto the perch like so, but also it's got a flat body, so the vulture can stand upright on the ground, which is good. It's multiple ways to play with this, and that is an excellent thing. When you when you have him perched on the perch here, Max sits here, and he's perfectly safe to close this shell. However, he can also perch the other way, and when he perches this way, his wing, let me just get him in here, his wing perfectly forms the silhouette of this pond. Now this is clearly meant to go like so, flat, because that's a pond. And so then this is not a viable perch for him when the set is set flat. There are your standard Mighty Max tropes like your bones and skeletons in here. This is a really cool sculpted mud puddle or water or something. Another one here. You've got a rib cage, some bones. There's a square there I don't quite understand. I'd like to see more of that and see what that is, but I don't know. But it's definitely square, and that's unusual for an organic set. And then up here, you have another perch. So the vulture can perch in multiple places. So down here you have a perch, and then up here, when the set is set up correctly, so that this is the floor, you don't want him perched sideways. So now you perch here, and so he perches perfectly well on this horizontal perch. But then of course you can also turn around and perch the other way as well. And then you see up here is a nest with the young, which in my opinion is, you know, the vulture carrying this skull up to feed to these young. They're pink painted, and the nest is here. No paint on the nest. Then there's a skeleton down here. Let's remove the vulture for a moment. And you got tree, and for some reason, a chain. There's a chain right there. I don't know why, but that's clearly a chain. And then, of course, this tree, of course. And now he can perch, like I said, here and here, but there's another perch for him. He can perch right here. This is part of the clasp when the thing is, but he's perfectly capable of perching right there. The spacing between these two knobs is perfect, and they did that absolutely on purpose. You can also perch him, if you feel like it, in this little nose hole here, because his claw can hook in there, and he's perfectly fine perching there as well. So when you have this set up correctly, vertically, with the bottom part being flat, he can still perch on the bottom, just not very well on the original perch for when you close the set. But there's more. There's one more thing, and that is in Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, Khan puts a seti eel in the ear of Chekhov, and that eel looks a lot like this thing. This is the slug that Max in the comic book picks up and throws at the vulture. Now, clearly, it's a bug or slug, and it's got these mandibles here, which is kind of cool. You got eyes, and underneath you got this beautiful sculpt. It reminds me a lot of the slug that you see in one of the sets, one of the other horror heads. I forget now, but there's a slug in there as well, or a centipede-like thing, and this sculptor looks like. He was definitely using that as reference, and maybe it's the same sculptor, I don't know. So this forms the claw of Clawber's forehead. This is the piece, by the way, that if you go online and check, a lot of you might find a lot of the cases, but you're very hard to find one of these, unless you buy a whole complete set, which is what I did. Now the slug, its mandibles fit on this little tab here. So when you put him in place, you place the mandibles on the tab, and then you jam him in place, and the negative space is so perfect he fits very well. And you almost don't notice him when you first open it up. He almost looks like a large purple leaf of some kind, but no, there he is. And he forms the other part of the outside from the inside. And let's pop our vulture back in place. So, you know, it's better to put Max in first. Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. This is the reason I brought this Max and not some of the others. The vulture is totally capable of picking Max up by the arms. And that also, I'm sure, is not a coincidence. With all of these features and all of these well-thought-out play functions, I have to give this top marks for being the best of all the horror heads that I've seen. And now I have 13 of them, so I don't know about the other 3 that I don't have, but they'll have to be pretty special to compete with this. Let's pop the jaw back in place. The definitely a tread vehicle and not a hovercraft, guys. So this goes up like so, and what happens is there are these little tabs in the back, little tiny clips in the back, and they clip right onto this little edge here, and allows you to swing it, but until you close the head, this can fall out and is loose. Also another hard part to find, so because it can fall out. When you close the head, though, it's locked in place. It does move, but it cannot be removed. And with all of these features, I give this such a huge praise. And again, I want to talk to the sculptors who made these things because, my God, they were brilliant. All right, guys, that is the, I believe, final horror head review I'm ever going to do, unless, like this one, the other 3 magically come into my possession. All right, that's it for now. Welcome down the Mighty Max rabbit hole with me. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.